Welcome to the Easy Computer Fixes channel. Today we're going to talk about routers and what should you choose as a router. First of all, when you look at routers, you should know one thing. The first thing is the router model Wi-Fi type. That is what is the standard that uses the Wi-Fi router you're using. There's B, there's G, there's N, that is the current winner actually, and there's the future with AC and AD. What do these letters mean? Well, first of all, you should know the order of the letters. B is old, G is more recent, but it's still getting old. G is an older protocol. N is the actual standard as we are talking right now on late November 2013. And AC is the brand new Wi-Fi standard coming up, and that should be finalized by early 2014. It's still in beta version, so I don't recommend buying any routers that aren't in the official standards yet. So the routers and the devices that you use all have a letter next to their Wi-Fi type. And so knowing if you should buy a device or not depends on the use you'll have for it, but also if you're buying a device, the Wi-Fi is going to tell you a little bit about the age of the chipset and the device itself. If you buy a laptop that has G, well, you can say that your laptop is several years old, and that's a little old. If you buy a device that's N, it's probably much more recent. What's the difference between the letters is, first of all, the speed. So N is faster than G, and G is faster than B. AC is faster than N. The range, once again, G is better than B. It will give you a little more range. But N will actually almost double the range of a G router and a G device. And finally, AC is also almost a double in the range that it's going to give. If you have a G router at home and you find that it's a little difficult to get far from your router, you have some places in your home where it doesn't reach. If your laptop or tablet that you use with the device actually has N possibility, then you really definitely should upgrade your router to an N version, because it will give you much more range and it's much less prone to interference. I would not consider having a G router anymore and would really think that it's better to change it. And apparently AC, that's coming up for 2014, is going to be quite a interesting protocol for distance. You might have seen also that some devices are on 2.4 gigahertz and they say, well, there's a 5 gigahertz possibility. Of course, if both devices can use 5 gigahertz, that's really nice, because it means that you'll probably have a better Wi-Fi range. 5 gigahertz is not used much at this time, so you are really definitely going to have a better range there. But not all devices actually accept 5 gigahertz connections, and not all routers will also have 5 gigahertz. What type of router do I buy? 2 antennas, 3 antennas, no antennas? What's the difference? Well, first of all, the no antenna routers are mostly there for, I would say, aesthetics. People find that routers are ugly little devices, and a lot of them will actually have no antennas outboard. But they still have an antenna, it's just that it's inside the casing. I don't usually recommend antennas that don't have antennas that you can see, because usually having no antennas will very often have less range. For example, the famous Linksys routers or Cisco routers that have no antennas and look like almost extraterrestrial ships. They're really cute, but they will give you less range than if you actually get yourself a router with many antennas on it. Now, why two or three antennas? It depends on the bands used, first of all. A lot of routers that have more than one antennas because we'll have a separate antenna for transmission and reception, which is always better. Also, if they have more than two antennas, they're sometimes going to have one for 5 gigahertz, one for 2.4 gigahertz, and the receiving antenna. What's interesting is that when you buy a router with several antennas, it often outperforms models that only have one because they can separate the signals depending on the way it's actually been programmed to use these antennas. Price of a router is very important. The more you pay for a router, the better quality it is, and very often the less problems you have in the long term. One of the probably the major complaints of routers is the fact that they have to be rebooted often, or there's often connection problems. So first of all, buying a good router is a really good idea. People buy $20 routers and wonder why they have problems all the time. Well, you just paid $20. I would say pay at least 50 and go even closer to 100 if you can for a good router. Another thing that you should actually look at is some routers have the ability to actually update by themselves without having you actually go in the firmware of the router and do it manually. If you're not a really geeky, techie type guy or girl, then try to get a router that updates by itself, which is much better. You won't have to do anything, and the router will actually auto update when it needs new firmware. And updating the firmware is important in routers because they often fix bugs, connection bugs. They often add better capabilities and will sometimes improve even range and connections. There's not really a lot. If I've, people will ask me, well, is there a brand of router that is better than the other? I would say that I tend to buy routers that I know the companies like Cisco, D-Link, Linksys. Those are nice. You might also want to check online. One of the best things that you probably can do before buying a router model is to just Google the model and look at the reviews. Are people happy with it or not? Some models are really bad, and even Cisco has bad models. So don't think that the best brands have the best routers all the time. Some models are surprising. For example, here I have a TP-Link, which is looks like this one. And I've been having a TP-Link router for at least 2 or 3 years, and it's actually an amazing piece of router, and is lower priced, but has, I would say, a pretty high standard of quality for such a router that's made in China. And if you're thinking, well, it's made in China, don't worry, they're all made in China, even the Cisco ones. So you can also make sure that you have the latest versions of the routers. So if you're going to a store, like I said, buy at least an N router. And hey, if you have a router that's an AC, you can also try it out. But keep in mind that buying a better router than what you have in devices is not going to help you much. If the router is an AC router, you paid $150 for it, but your laptop's an N laptop, there won't be any improvements, as your laptop's going to just communicate in the N standard. And overall, I would not buy any routers that have new standards because they're usually more buggy than they should be. And as long as the official standards not set, well, sometimes it happens that some routers aren't even upgradable. You'll have to buy actually a new router to really make things compatible. And finally, one of the biggest problems of routers is, of course, the fact that you often have to reboot them. And that's every router has that problem. Some are less buggy than others, and a lot of the problems might also be the fact if you have a lot of Wi-Fi stuff on your router. For example, I have an iPad, an iPhone, an iPod Touch, 3 laptops, 1 Mac, 2 PCs, and I must say an Apple TV, and also an Android device. So you see a lot of connections here with my router. And the more you have devices at home, the more buggy you're probably going to have a router, especially when you have different types of devices. So upgrading the firmware is important for that. It sometimes improves compatibility. You might have a Wi-Fi printer also. So take a look at the offerings. Buy models that have external antennas. They're much better than the ones that don't have any antennas at all. And if you're looking for range, the latest models will offer better range than the old models like the G type, for example. So take a look at that and make sure that you have something that's not too old if you want to have good performance. If you enjoy our videos, please subscribe to our channel. You'll be informed when new videos are online. If you have any comments, questions on what you've seen, let us know. Maybe you have a router of your own that you enjoy and you want to talk about it. Say, hey, I've got this model and I really, really like it. It's always nice. It always works perfectly. Or maybe you have a model and you say, well, it's crappy. It always reboots. Share your experience with your own routers. And if you have any comments, questions, or maybe a video you'd like us to make of a feature, let us know. We'll try to put that video online, and it might help others at the same time. And hopefully, you'll come back to the Easy Computer Fixes channel. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.